short-term. This is the only short-term solution that today would solve this problem. And to my enormous disappointment, the state court system, which runs housing court, has been quite resistant to making any moves to ensure representation for all tenants. And I support the statewide legislative move to establish this right, both because it's the morally right thing to do for the rest of the state, but also because I think it will benefit New York City tenants, because it will, I think, finally force the Office of Court Administration, OCA, which is what administers all this, to take action. I think if there's state legislation in place, not just New York City Council legislation, that it will finally compel the state court system to act to ensure the right is fulfilled in other parts of the state and New York City. And this legislation is very far along. It has a strong majority of support in both the Assembly and the State Senate. It just needs one more push to get through. And I think the community boards of Manhattan and Manhattan Borough Board speaking up would be extremely helpful in this fight. So I'm going to pause there. And we're voting later, but wanted to voice my opinion on this important topic.
Thank you so much. I'm so sorry, before we even got started with that, I should have done roll call just to make sure everybody got to say a few words. So we'll start CB1, CB2.
Yeah.
CB3, virtual, CB4.
Good morning, Jeffrey LaBransois.
CB5.
Yeah.
CB6. CB7.
Present.
Aye.
Aye.
CB8.
Here.
Thank you, Russell. CB9.
Morning, here.
CB10.
Good morning, here.
CB11.
Present.
And CB12.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. So our council members, 1, CB7. And Eddie, you are proxy on behalf of Carlina Rivera, correct? Thank you. You have the borough president. All right, apologies for missing that before. So with that, I think we'll just jump right into the vote then. Is there anybody, so we're going to be voting on the borough board resolution in support of right to counsel state legislation. We are opening it up now for public comments. If there is anybody here or virtually that wanted to make a public comment.
If the council resolution urging the adoption of statewide right to counsel hasn't passed yet, can we add that? We're working out that we support the passage of the council resolution.
I would consider that a friendly amendment. How do others feel about that?
Yes.
Is that okay?
I'm here representing CB5's concern. We have a letter of support for this particular intro in April, but this past month, we had Right to Counsel come to our committee about the recent legislation that came out by Senator Kruger and Brad Hoylman. And the new intro proposes adjournment for people who make a good faith effort to find a lawyer. But we're really concerned that this adjournment can be long lasting, because we've dug into the data and apparently there was 10,000 cases this year that could be adjourned, but only 48 attorneys available to try the cases. So we're just worried that this could create, repercussions. So Vicki mentioned that if we could propose some clause that mentioned funding for the attorneys, maybe we could vote to support this.
Sure. I thought there was something about the funding of attorneys, but we can make sure that it's in there.
I did see that.
And there was a part about fully implementing the funding, right?
Second to last.
Can I just, I don't know what the parliamentary procedure here, but just trying to clarify something. I think that there are two different legislative efforts. Yeah. And I perhaps you have members of your board who are concerned that it would be unfair to small landlords, small owners. if you have long-term adjournment with no attorneys.
Yes, and also one of our committee members mentioned roommate situations where one roommate is in pain and that could affect the other roommate. And it's not just the landlord situation, but
Yes, I mean, the roommate case, kind of the roommate eviction cases are maybe 1% of the eviction cases, so they're not zero, but it's a small number. I think that the legislation specifically referred to here would likely have, I would hope would have the opposite effect, that it would compel adequate funding of the tenant legal service sector. Did you determine, Eric, whether there's a reference to that in the text?
I believe there is, but I also wanted to highlight, I think the reason why there may not be something very specific to adjournment is because this is about the state legislation and it does not include the calendaring. And-
Yeah, yes,
and,
they're two
Office of
separate
Court.
bills.
Yeah,
And but perhaps adding explicit mention of our desire to see adequate funding for tenant legal representation.
yeah.
Would help CV5.
So I actually want to go back to Russell's friendly amendment first, just to see if anybody would want to second that and see if we want to approve it. If Russell, if you want to add it one more time.
Just to clarify, Russell, you want to make sure that we are also sort of sending this to the council to encourage them to pass the RESA
They have their own resolution.
to support the state legislation.
Oh, yeah,
Just that's, yes,
Okay, yeah, absolutely, I would second that.
okay. Can we vote in favor or does anybody want to vote in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Any nays? Extension? Now I guess going to the second point about adding a piece in there about additional funding for tenant lawyers. Anybody want to second that amendment as well?
Second,
Okay,
if we go beyond what is currently in the second to last, whereas clause.
yeah, because I think the whereas clause was about funding for the program overall, but I think it's specific about the tenant lawyer portion.
Okay, sure.
Because I know there's also community engagement, et cetera. Yeah, thank you.
Yes.
Second, and all in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed?
Point of clarification.
Yeah,
This would then go into the second, therefore be the result.
yes, correct.
Okay, correct. I just want to clarify.
Any abstention? Thank you. All right. Yeah, did you have something you
Just,
wanted to add?
we are having the meeting tonight with the right to counsel, so we're just waiting on that. It's been, budget needs are priority right now. The only thing we did in 2016, we did pass a right to counsel similar, so we'll be able to weigh in and then I can amend at the subsequent meeting next month. The only thing we have heard from small landlords that have concerns and they just want to make sure that things continue on a track. They're fine and supportive with generally everyone having counsel across all sectors and business across the board. And they just want to make sure that everything is just not put in a kind of purgatory status. Because there've been a couple of nightmare cases in our neighborhood where people just intentionally didn't pay and knew what they were doing. And then all of a sudden they show up with a lump sum and they were just hoarding everything. And that was, I listened to everyone and our VP knows that I'll listen to all sides of an issue. And so that's just something that was raised, but I think our position will most likely lean towards support. So,
Thank you. I see we have a raised hand here as well. So Harry, you've been added and you're asked to unmute.
Thank you. Just here from CM Menon's office. Just wanted to make sure that I was in place to vote on her behalf when the time came.
Great, thank you. I think we're gonna actually open up the vote now. So I can do this as a roll call if that's all right, just from who we have here. CB2,
Yes.
thank you. All right. Sorry. CB4,
Yes, sorry. Proudly.
thanks. CB5,
yes.
CB7,
Yes.
thank you. CB8,
Yes.
CB9,
yes.
CB10,
Yes.
CB11,
Aye.
thank you. CD12.
Yes.
Great. All right, council members here in attendance, Councilmember Marte. Councilmember Brea. Yes. Great. Thank you so much, Borough President.
Yes.
I will pass over to proxy votes as well. So Eddie. Great, thank you so much. Harry, if you're still there, you want to
Yeah.
vote?
Yes, the council member votes aye.
All right. Are there any other electeds or representatives of electeds on Zoom? Otherwise, we'll leave the vote open. I believe there'll be a couple of council members who had some engagements this morning and are going to try to join us at some point. So we'll leave the vote open, but for now, we do have a majority vote, so the resolution passes. So thank you very much, everyone, for your time. So, Borough President, if you want to give your report now, and then.
I'll allow other folks to speak, it's fine.
Okay,
Thank you.
great. Well, Councilmember Marte, if you want to give a report.
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to quickly bring something up. We got a lot of emails, and I know a lot of council members got emails about Holden's bill when it comes to sound and the enforcement of sound, especially when it comes to commercial properties. Intro 0160 and intro 1194, which will amend the noise code. This is really sensitive for people in my district that live near nightlife and bars, and so those bills aren't up for a vote. There was just a hearing on it. I had the first intro only has 4 co-sponsors, and the second one only has 1 co-sponsor. So it doesn't seem like it's going to move, but I know me and my colleagues have been receiving a lot of emails. People just in fear throughout the borough, fearing that this was.
What does this bill call for?
It's going to amend the sound code so it doesn't take into account the bass, and so the bass can be as loud as possible, and it would just do the monitoring of the decimeter, like the actual music that's coming out. And so yeah, that's not moving forward. Just want to make sure that people aren't freaking out at home. There's 2 bills that I'm introducing today. One is with Bob Holden. In my district, especially in Chinatown, Little Italy, and Lower East Side, we have a lot of movie productions that take up our streets throughout the year. And I know this is the case for certain historic and iconic neighborhoods throughout the city. And who suffers in them? Mostly small businesses, because they take up their sidewalks. There's not a lot of foot traffic that's normally there. And so this will force small business services to conduct a study on the economic impact on those small businesses in these neighborhoods. The second bill I'm introducing is actually with Councilmember Herrera. Both of our districts were impacted by Hurricane Sandy. There's neighborhoods in Queens and Staten Island that were impacted by Hurricane Ida. And we don't have an evacuation plan for tenants. Whenever there's a fire in the building, there are maps of how to evacuate, there's procedures, there's bylaws in certain condos. We want that for flooding and future storms to make sure that people know how to get to high elevation, know the proper ways to exit. Sometimes the basement is not the best way to exit. And so this would create property owners to create a plan to make sure that their tenants are safe, especially as we face more climate disasters in the future. There's something exciting coming up this Sunday in Chinatown. We're going to have a massive block party for a street renaming of Corky Lee. He was a really iconic photographer. Some people say he is the photographer of our lifetime. And so come by at 4 p.m. There's going to be music, dancing, and it's going to be a really great event.
Councilmember, if I may, about your film bill, which I think is a great idea, I wonder, is there direction for SBS to coordinate with Mayor's Office of Media and Entertainment?
Yeah.
Just and I bring this from my professional capacity as a bid executive director, but when we get notification, we work to ensure they're getting their craft services from businesses and like trying to steer that. And many conversations with MOM have been had, but have gone nowhere.
Yeah.
So if there's any legislative teeth you can provide to the agency to sort of make that happen, that might be a 2.0, but I think this is a great first step. So thank you.
Yeah, exactly. I think this is for us to get the information, the data in place. So when we go to the mayor's office, we can say it's harming our small businesses. We need action.
As a producer and filmmaker, from my company here in the UK, I can tell you flat out that some of these things are bound by the union agreements that we have to abide by, and Teamsters and whatnot, but I have found that there are successful inroads that you can actually ask them to procure some of their craft services as well as other amenities in the neighborhood and be supportive if they say have a walk away, which is the term meaning that you don't actually have a lunch provided, they can walk away and they have an hour to go get their food and whatnot. So I'd be pleased to partner with you and also talk and give you insight on that. So we've been pretty successful. Our biggest thing has been getting notices out when they go to shut down the streets and advising people. But as someone who's done that in our community and elsewhere in New York, there's a way to make both of them marry successfully. So that's great. Yeah.
Yes.
Hi, thank you for that. I live in a neighborhood where not only businesses are impacted, but the residents. There are landlords who are renting out spaces, and it interferes with the comings and goings of residents. So if something in the legislation could just recommend that they become better partners to the living people, you know, that are there. It's not just the parking, it's the egress, it's moving along the street and things of that sort. They're just not great partners all the time in, you know, community, and they're arrogant, and it is a public safety issue because there've been encounters. So I don't know whether that speaks to your, you know, to what your efforts are, but there needs to be better, you know, just community engagement in advance. You know, they put up notices for parking, but what happens when they're leaving doors open into residential situations 24/7, and that becomes a public safety issue, and they're not there to clean up the mess after it's all said and done. I just wanted to share that.
Thank you, and thank you, Councilmember Marte, for your report. Councilmember Borough.
Thank you, everybody. So next week, next Tuesday, we're having a hearing on one of my bills, which would require sport venues to allow consumers to bring their own reusable water bottles. So that would apply to all professional sports, and that would apply also to college campuses. I mean, when you add them all up, we're talking about hundreds of thousands of seats. It's very good for our environment. You know, we're expecting positive testimony from our Natural Resource Defense Council next week for the conservation voters. I think even the Yankees are going to get positive testimony. You know, we're expecting folks to come at this from all angles. I'm sure there will be also negative testimony there as well. But, you know, we are optimistic of the passage of this bill in some version. You know, we're looking at amendments, for instance, that we'll announce next week, but, you know, we want to put the cart before the horse on that. We also had a hearing last week on two of my bills regarding background checks with respects to daycare providers. Daycare providers are struggling right now because background checks, at least in the past, have taken an average of 6 to 8 months. You can't run a business when background checks take that long. And that's the cost that's associated with that is being transferred over to our parents. Why is that? If you have an instructor in the classroom who is uncleared because it's taken 6 to 8 months to get a background check, they have to be paired with a person who is cleared. So now you have to hire 2 people for one job. That cost is being absorbed by parents' tuition costs. So we had one of the bills requires that the city do a background check within 14 days. Now we're going to be not compliant with that, but it's a little more stringent than the federal standard, but the federal standard sets the floor. So we could be more stringent. Regardless, they're not even complying the city with the federal standard. The other bill would require Department of DOHMH to consult with DOE to consult with each other because there's overlapping information with different background checks that if they just spoke with each other, a lot of the information for one background check can be relevant to the other. Our last bill, which hasn't been heard yet, and you know we've been pushing the council leadership to get it heard, is a bill that says if you get a background check within DOHMH, let's say in year 1, and you decide to switch for another job that requires a background check with DOHMH in year 2, that background check should transfer to the person. You shouldn't have to get another background check within the next year if nothing has changed. So it's a good government bill, it's efficiency, and that's something that we're pushing the council to hear. That would only apply within 5 years. After every 5 years, you would have to get a new background check no matter what, which is consistent with federal standards. We're hoping that this would go a long way in making childcare affordable.
Great.
But yeah, the hearing is next Tuesday on the reusable water bottle bill. Testimony from community boards, from our president's office, be very welcome. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilmember.
No, it was to the community boards.
Okay, great. Want to welcome Tammy. Hi, good morning. Tammy, just so you know, we did the vote and left it open for rights of counsel. So if you have any comments or wanted to vote.
I vote yes.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. All right, so we don't have DOE on just yet for their presentation. So I think we can move to chair reports. It's month 10, so we are going to go with community board 10. So Charles, if you wanted to give a brief report.
Sure, I'll be very brief. As all of you know, I am not Marquise Harrison. I am the first vice chair, Charles Powell. He sends his greetings and regrets. I'll keep it very brief. We have been, as all of you are, I'm sure, working diligently on district needs. It's a frustrating process, quite frankly, but we do our surveying of the community. Lots of needs, not many resources in return, but it is a process. So Marquise just wanted to make sure that we know that we are on time, Mr. Bell President, and for all others concerned. And thank you for our council members for all your kind considerations when these things come before the council for consideration. Many of you know that our district manager, Jatik Mitchell, has gone on to Central Park Conservancy. Kudos to Jatik, but it has left a big void in our office. And I'm sure many of you more experienced than I have gone through district manager searches and trying to figure it out.
Good luck.
And make sure you get the right one, and then you just hope that it doesn't implode, so we're going through that process. So we have a really, really diligent search going on. Pray for us. You don't always, with the money that's being offered, get the absolute best, especially somebody to fill the shoes of someone like Shatik, but we're in the process of dealing with that. Big issue for us, as I'm sure for many of you, is cannabis, Lord have mercy, cannabis. So we are starting with our Economic Development Committee to just get applications, and don't mind saying, I'm a lawyer, going, if we can get some darn guidance on what it is that they're expecting of us. We went through a big issue with one of the cannabis dispensaries that had been afforded, a temporary, license, and was supposed to be opening. And then, of course, the judge in Albany, stayed that one. And then we heard that it's unstayed, and so we really support, the overall purpose of cannabis dispensaries and the people that have been subjected to those, errors of the criminal justice system, Rockefeller laws, whatever it may be. But at the same time, we don't know what we're supposed to do. So we think advisory, how do you really get advisory when you don't have any data, on the thing. So we would really, really welcome, I'm sure Marquise would, and board, any advice that you can give us as to the work that you've done in your particular community boards. And so please help us. But we have about 8 pending. Currently, I'm sure many of you have a lot more. But 40. Okay. So So that's a big deal. I would say that the community has really, has a diverse opinions. Lots of people are for it, and a whole lot of people are against it. So that puts us in a little bit of a, of a quandary. But at the end of the day, we are, just still trying to move along with all of the above, and I will just end that report there. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much for that report. Just want to let everybody know that we've been joined by Councilmember Gail Brewer. Thank you for being here with us. Councilmember, we opened up the vote. It's still open for support or for the resolution in support of right to counsel. Don't know if you want to log your vote.
I'm supportive of right to counsel. Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
That's an easy one.
And you're also welcome to give your report.
Go
whenever
ahead,
you're
keep going,
comfortable.
keep going.
Okay, great. Pass it over to Xavier then.
Morning, everyone. Hope you're all doing well. A couple significant things happening in our district. I'm sure you heard about the closure of Target at East River Plaza. This was the very first Target in the city. In fact, it started my tenure on the board, and I was one of the people in the room dealing with Costco and encouraging them to accept EBT. And in fact, I recently ran into Councilmember Goya, who was on the other side in the Brooklyn Queens, advocating the same side, and he didn't realize we were on the same fight. The reality is that when Target came, it's a really watershed moment when they joined our community and activated that space thoroughly. I've unfortunately been on the receiving end of hearing so many people are upset, literally, abuelitas in tears about where they're going to go. We have tried to negotiate with them. They have not been reciprocal in good faith. We conducted an emergency executive committee session calling on them to come back to the table. Unfortunately, they've been unreceptive at this point. It's deeply upsetting to us. We believe is that they have changed their business model to a smaller store format to prevent for loss prevention, prevent shrink. And that's the real reality of it. We have advocated to their intergovernmental affairs that they should actually consider about creating that as a primary warehouse on one half, because they are on the hook for almost 18 years of lease, and then create a smaller store format, but then they have all of their inventory there that can distribute throughout the rest of Manhattan. The way in two birds, one stone. Unfortunately, this was premeditated, in my opinion. If you listen to the investor calls, again, it's going to impact and create more of a desert in that area. People go there for food, for other resources. As one of our members said, where am I going to go to get my pantyhose? And they tear, and it's a real question. And that we are working also with the landlord there to see if we can put other stores, and he is interviewing and taking on proposals. Because as you may recall, we had the Best Buy that left, and then we had the PetSmart that left right at the beginning of the pandemic. We're hopeful, but we're still advocating for that. As many of you may be aware, in the news, we had another unfortunate event at a daycare with a ghost gun that was discovered on 117th between Madison and Park. Very upsetting. The individual in question is 19 years of age, has been problematic in the community, although despite our leaning in and trying to assist, we are addressing that with the 2-5 and the DA's office. Speaking of the DA's office, we're due for a meeting to get more information back that has been parsed out when it comes to narcotics related prosecution, including distribution and possession, as it pertains to the 125th Street corridor down to 116th Street corridor. So we have real data on the impact from state legislation, better understanding of how we can handle this together. Andy Wershauer, who is the head of prosecution, has said that discovery reform is tying their hands. They just can't get to everything. And even if they were fully staffed, they can't get to everything. Timbali Terrace passed our committee of land use, and it was yes with conditions, and the conditions were very nuanced and predominantly on the supportive housing and employment. Most of the committee and the community were calling for more of a diversification of supportive housing. We have carved out in our conditions very nuanced approach that would allow for both the application of 1515 as well as the mix and match program. Unfortunately, the view is that HPD didn't roll this out as well as we would have liked. Crafted out of thin air when, again, my time on the board, it used to be 80-20, if you remember that, when it came to affordable housing. We created permanently affordable housing. We plucked that out of thin air. And I'm sure our former Borough President Council member remember Sendero Verde, and when that came through, that online, very successful. Again, supportive of affordable housing, supportive of ALJA. It was just the contention was the type and the vendor. So full board next week. Last bit, cannabis. Philia, that's all I can say. We're in the same boat. The rules, the way it was rolled out, they had a very good roadmap when it came to SLA, and they didn't apply that holistically across the model. And if they had done that, I think we'd have a clear understanding. We are inundated, not as much as some other neighborhoods, with applications, and some for the same location. And so we are working our way through that and look forward to partnering. With that, I'll conclude my report, and I thank everyone for the time.
Great. Thank you so much, Xavier. I also want to recognize, sorry, I didn't see you back there, Deputy Borough President Keisha Sutton James is here with us too. Thank you for being here. Phil, I don't know if you'd like to be
Is
present.
everybody
Yeah.
done?
No, we're still going around, but you're more than welcome.
Okay,
Okay, you let me know when.
I will.
I'll pass it to CB12. Hi, Catherine.
All right, hi everyone. So it seems like there's a lot of staffing changes all across Manhattan. We're currently hiring for a part-time, which I'm super excited about because it's the 4th staff line we were able to add, which is very rare, and I think it's the first time ever on our board. And this is for a part-time outreach worker, which is a huge need. I know at all boards, so we're hoping that this could be a really successful new staff line where we can be more creative around our outreach work, but particularly with the small business community, especially when it comes to SLA and now with the cannabis, but also the restaurants
Open restaurant.
with the open restaurant program. Where we know that there's an abundant need of education and guidance needed there. So that position's currently open, city job, so feel free to move it around. I know district managers have shared that. And then we'll also have a full-time community associate position open. Our community associate is leaving next week. So that staff line will be open at the end of the month. Leaving us just down to our district manager. So we go, lots of patience and but we'll be compensating with some interns and of course some of the elected roles that our board are going to be supporting at the office. As far as I would say, I think cannabis probably should be like an agenda item next month or something. What I can speak to our board experience right now, we don't anticipate having a hearing in November. We only got 9 and none of the 9 have leases. And so very similar to all without a lease, you're not necessarily on the agenda. And so, but our task force will be meeting next month to discuss and kind of educate as to where things are, what the process is going to be for folks coming forward. It's currently a task force. We're still kind of gauging what the demands may be for it to be a full standing committee at this point, because obviously with the card rollout, it didn't necessitate that, similar maybe to like the downtown boards. But Uptown still hasn't gotten that floodgate yet. So we'll see with time. So that'll be next month. And we're happy, maybe like I don't know if Google Drive works for everyone, but just to kind of add what the questionnaires are, some guidance documents that I know that our committee and our DM have been working on. As far as kind of like big lift projects at the same time right now we got going on, and I think I mentioned it last month, is the Historic District Council survey, being able to identify and expand historic districts in our neighborhood and landmarks. There are a lot of gems uptown that are not protected that we have seen demolished and have been denied over time. So we're hoping that this is a community-wide survey, English and Spanish. So that's something we're going to be working really diligently on, I would say, in the next year. And then as far as kind of a business coming up in the next month or what's been going on since last month, we have had some recent murders in our district, and incredible, terribly murders in the sense of, where is the oversight when it comes to orders of protection, things that regulatory bodies have a responsibility for, right? Including one that had to do with a moped. And so these are, when it came up in our board, of course, a lot of community residents are like, where's the preventative aspects that we're asking for, and that diligence from our agencies, not just the NYPD. So that's something that we're going to kind of continue to engage agencies on. And then, of course, tonight we have our budget hearing, and next week full board. And we got a new look. So let me say something new, right? Like we got a new look. We did some new rebranding. That's going to be rolling out in the next month. So you'll be able to see that. And some gear maybe from CB12 I can bring next month. So that's that.
Thank you so much. And I think something that you highlighted last month, my daughter had a great time at the Uptown or the Dykeman night market. She's 8 months old and she was dancing to the live music. So
I think it's worth saying it because I know they're looking to expand in other areas. It was a great success, amazing turnout. Our board did not receive any complaints after the night market took place, and their cleanup was incredible. Like within an hour, it was just, you would have never imagined that the level of production that took place was there. So, we were really happy in terms of the level of production and organizations that MHG had. So we'll see if it comes back.
Great, thank you. Tammy, pass it over to you.
Okay. Good morning, everybody, and I apologize if someone losing my voice. I'm happy to share whatever resources we have because we've been working on a cannabis application. We have one. We are over 30 applications. I have no idea if this, we didn't open the mail yesterday, we could be heading. It's just, it's a daunting thing, and we actually were told that as long as they have a provisional license from OCM, they don't need to have autonomy and control over the physical location. That they have to have something from the landlord saying that they are in negotiations, but they don't have to have necessarily control over the property. Because it could take up to 12 months for them to get a real full license. So I say that as a warning for you, for anybody who is not hearing the cannabis applications. We did attend the training last week by OCM, and I will say I was incredibly disappointed, and that's a gentle expression of it. It's an hour-and-a-half training for community boards, and there was not one dialogue of what community board information needed until an hour and 7 minutes. And when you look through the chat, and people were absolutely starting to lose their marbles. And that was community boards from Brooklyn, Queens, Staten Island, Bronx, Manhattan, all of.
Did you do the first one?
I did the first one, and we were so turned off that no one went to the second one, which was a little better. Great. But we asked and they said it'll be the same presentation, so that's why none of us went to the second one. So now I'd love your notes from the second one, but it actually really seems, and I'm gonna call this out in the way that we are all board chairs. We have a city chartered responsibility. Our chartered responsibility is absolutely, if you take a step back and you pull back from where the daily running of it is. Rule changes, which are extraordinarily impactful for quality of life, which is one of the things, has a 30-day comment period, which does not fit into the comments of the board. I say this because it's DOT and it's noise and it's other things. That's a problem. You look at OCM, cannabis really did not follow the format that SLA did to be able to give the community board their chartered right to opine. And it's not getting any better, unfortunately. City of Yes, the upcoming application that's coming to us, with 18 parks. They've had years and decades to work on it with lobbyists and firms and studies. You're expecting a community board to get a 60 or 90 day to go through 18 things that drastically changes things, drastic changes with zoning. Some zoning issues that individual boards have had individual discussions, like for us with Governor's Island, one of the negotiations that we had was that there was no casinos. So we have to even hire a land use consultant to find out, would this overturn the work that the boards have already done? I mean, it is kind of on the unconscionable side of that. And if you would say, well, it stops there and then go to open dining. Open dining is under the guise of the Department of Transportation, which does not have the same SLA input. And for the revocable consent, the board is notified, but our opinions are not necessarily what's driving a stipulation. And there was no thought given with open dining to, right now I have an ice cream store that's opened with road bed dining next to a cannabis illegal store. So there's no forethought or comment that we have that we can put in for hours. So the people come out of the cannabis store and it's midnight and they're partying at the ice cream store. And the residents above are like, don't you have anything that you can say about this? And the answer is, no, actually we don't. It's also caused the closing of other stores that were next to them. So we're seeing cascading effects. We see the city has been amazing for trying to help the migrants, but they also have not taken the same care to take a look at the small businesses around when they choose to take a hotel offline and make it into a shelter. The financial impact for the surrounding community. I'm not talking about, public safety, I'm talking about the cafe across the street that relied on tourism and the employees to survive. It's having a broader impact because the migrants don't have the money to spend in the cafes in our neighborhoods. They don't have the money or jobs to be able to go in. Which then brings us, so I don't mean to be all complaining, but I really do think that there is a systematic attack on what the role, our city charter role in the process is. And I say it today because we have a brand new district manager who just started. I'm super excited. Zach Palmer started on Monday.
Oh.
Zach, right? Zach's been around a while, so it's fun for him to see the other side, but it's really just astounding, right? When you take a look he's come from policy into, the other side. We're gonna get him up to speed. I promise I wouldn't just throw him over the boat into the water without a life. Getting him up to speed, but it's a ton. And when you take a look and you understand what our city charter role is and where we're closed out, that's a problem. So we, for example, on the smallest level, everybody knows where the pedestrian plaza is, and it comes with free public seating, and it could really enhance the area. Well, we don't know the rules with open dining, and we have a street that's being converted to a pedestrian plaza. It's a landmark street, landmark buildings. We went through, we said yes with landmarks. When it came to us with BBC and everything else, we said very specifically, we do not want this to turn into Stone Street, where it's just all privatized seating for restaurants in the entire block. We really are looking for this to be something of a pedestrian plaza. And so when they came to present and we asked them if they could guarantee that, because all the stores that are on the pedestrian plaza are now shut, and so they could potentially all be restaurants, the applicant said no, they would only do what the laws were. And so we asked DOT, well, what are the new rules for open dining and pedestrian plazas? And they said, we don't know yet. We said, great, we'll be happy to rule on it, come back and let us know next month. We just got notification, and I know DOT is busy, but sorry, we're gonna let them and encourage them to go to PDC without the community board because we don't know the rules yet. And I really do think, I look back and I sit back and I'm like, how many times does a community board want to knock it against the wall? So I think that that's a little bit of a larger topic that I do believe as community boards, we are reactive to what we are doing, but we want to be in our role, in our assigned seats. And we need the Borough President's office to help us with that, because city council can only do so much. But when you have individual city agencies and a state agency that truly does not understand the role of the community board, nor does it care, because when we're doing the cannabis thing, do you have to have control over the property? Do you not have to have control over the property? How is this gonna work? How is the community board supposed to say yes or no if it's not, we found out at the meeting last week that a group cannot reapply with the same names to different properties, that it has to be. But how do we know if they don't list all the interested parties? It really is at this point, and you start to realize when you're training a new district manager and you're having them learn all the processes, kind of where we're at a sort of a bow break moment, I think, for community boards. And unless there is a door open to open dining, a change in cannabis, a delay for DCP to really not take something that's 18 different sections to a community board and divide that up to a little bit more, and a real look at what rule change means. Because now open dining being under DOT is rule change, so they could make any changes once they get the first rules out. We know there are rules somewhere being looked at, but the community boards have never been brought to the table. And with that, I close my I'm a fire girl. we have lots of things going on like others do. We have new shelters that are supposed to be opening, but we haven't had an update on the last shelter, which is 2 years behind doing construction. And then we're told that we're getting a new shelter and it's our first. Wait a minute, I've got 5 blocks away that's under construction. Tell me what's going on. No, we don't know what's going on. We've had quality of life issues with people being attacked near the subways. Which is not getting any better, unfortunately. We did have Right to Counsel present last night, and we had the district attorney's office present last night. And we had the conversation about the jail. And for everything that they told us that they won't be building a super mega jail in Chinatown, they're increasing the bed counts. And they have no way to be in line with the state law, which everyone says you have to follow the law, but Brooklyn won't even be built by the time the laws are done. There's no way Manhattan. So perhaps this is an opportunity that we should really be taking a look at the laws and taking a look to ensure the community board is not overridden in our city charter responsibility. And that if you have a mega thing like the mega jail, and you're not going to make the timelines because the law did not consider COVID, then maybe we need to take a look at that again. We really need to take a look at the laws to protect the community board process and the community overall.
Tammy, thank you so much. I'm over here taking a ton of notes because I'm gonna take a lot of this back up to Trisha and folks to see if we can get some more answers for you, especially when it comes to rulemaking, et cetera. So, okay.
It's astounding. I mean, we found out that there were changes to the way the noise code works, and like it comes through. There's only so many things I think that people can follow, but if rule change was something that had a comment period, like anything that would fit into a community board, then you could, but 30 days almost guarantees that unless you're really lucky, you got nothing to say.
Thank you so much.
I completely, I don't have to repeat what was said. Many on CB2 feel the same way. It's almost like it's a conscious effort to minimize the role of community boards in any of those things. It's almost as though the one thing they've looked at SLA, and that is something we're very proud of, that we have become actively involved in developing stipulations and balancing the interests of businesses and residents, and playing a role in maintaining, a quality of life. And it's almost as though the one thing that various interest groups don't repeat what SLA is. SLA has given an opportunity for the community to be involved. And it's as though each of those other types of each of those examples, and cannabis being the most recent, is like it's designed so that we will have minimal input. You folks think that you've gotten a lot. As of Tuesday, we've had 71 notices.
Whoa.
Yeah, yeah. Now, fortunately, we do have a really great, experienced chair of our committee, and we're working our way through them to see which ones, are maybe not valid because of the locations, and which ones are multiples from the same applicant. But we already had to schedule 2 meetings for the month in order to try to get through the ones that we're going to hear. It's, just the way we are becoming a go-to place to go drinking, we're gonna end up becoming a go-to place for purchasing of cannabis. And what is that fallout going to look like when streets become dominated, just the way we have so many, retail business sites that used to have a diversity of businesses that catered to the needs of the community. They're now, eating and drinking establishment after eating and drinking establishment. And that affects people's ability to live in their own neighborhoods. And if that is now paired with cannabis location, all these cannabis locations, what is that going to do to our streetscape? What is that going to do to people's ability to live in their homes because basically everybody in our district lives in a mixed use, every street is mixed use in one way or to one extent or another. So it's quite mind-boggling, actually. You know, I've raised the question, is it even legal for one agency to set rules that thwart the mandated efforts of another agency? And people look at me as though that's why, you know, how could you, why would you even think that? And it's like, how can one arm of government prevent another arm of government from doing its job?
And
I've never, nobody would even, you know, entertain that idea. I don't know. Well, in the sense of if an agency sets up a timetable that makes it impossible for us to do what we're required to do, is that something that should be challenged? You know, and ideally you would rather work something out, but is that even on its face a legitimate timetable to set when we have a legally mandated obligation to perform a certain function? I never know, people just look at me like I'm strange when I ask that question, but we're sharing a lot of the same issues. We just went through our budget priorities. At the top are things relating to human services, homelessness. We have a lot of just the street crime dealing with drugs has just like is out of control. We have a lot of people who are coming to us and they are afraid. This is not simply a question of homelessness, this is a question of addicts. And they are unpredictable, their behavior can be unpredictable, and we have many stories of people walking into businesses and engaging with the people who work there. And I just heard a story, you know, they can't hold on to their staff because people become afraid to work because they, you know, somebody comes in and they're aggressive, and if they think they can get away with it, they come back and they keep trying again and again. The DCP survey, our results, the top ones, quality of life with including petty crime. Number 2 was crime and public safety. 3 was homelessness. So they're just, it's very hard. People we've been advocating for social services to help deal with some of these underlying issues, but it's getting tough for people. You know, they're reaching a limit to the point where it's like, but I'm afraid, you know. Those are kind of at the top. The other thing that is sort of connected, we are still working our way through 388 Hudson, which is supposed to be our 100% affordable housing. And the one thing that's emerging from that discussion, we just had another community visioning event, was a concern that the housing is actually truly permanently affordable. What that means is something that a lot of people are not clear on. That's the one thing that gets mentioned again and again consistently is people are worried that this will be affordable for a period of years and that it's not going to be. This is city property, it should be in perpetuity, and we're not getting clear enough assurances on that front. And considering that we are actually losing units of housing because we have people who are taking multi-unit dwellings and converting them into single-family dwellings, we are losing on top of everything else, we're losing units, and we don't have open spaces for building a lot. So when we have an opportunity, we're trying to maximize that. And a lot of people are not.
You're not a land trust, right?
I'm sorry?
You're not a land trust?
No.
Who's Cooper Square? Who's gonna make them a land trust?
It's a DEP decision.
Yeah.
I know what the site is, I know very well, but I'm just saying, maybe you could do a land trust.
You know, so.
But they're not gonna, that's the only way you're
No
gonna.
worries, thank you so much.
Yeah, I guess that has something to that effect of my work. I don't, I'm not a land use expert, so. So those are some of the things that are going on with us.
Thank you so much, Susan, appreciate it. Just wanna mention, I believe. Our Councilmember De La Rosa, our representative, has joined us.
I can speak if you want.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I just want to register a vote here
Oh, okay.
for the council member or Kiana.
Yes,
Hi, did you want to register your vote for the right to counsel?
yes, the council member is an aye. Yes, she's a yes
Great,
in
thank you,
supporting this resolution. Thank you.
appreciate it.
You know, the MTA could see some issues. I don't know what they'll do about them, but we made a long list, and it was good to see, there's even going to be a structure. I asked if Landmark signed off on it, and they did in Central Park. Because I said, there's no driving in Central Park. Well, there might be a truck that is delivering sod. I'm just telling you. So that's what we ended up with. You learn when you walk. So that's number one. Then also, we had also, I think was something to maybe emulate. We brought all of the arts organizations and all of the principals for the schools together. It was about 80 arts organizations and 50 principals at Lincoln Center, and they went around and figured out which arts organization. They may have some already, but I did this years ago at El Museo, so it's something similar. It's a great way to get the arts organizations and the schools, because sometimes, you know, they don't know each other. So that, we're gonna try to do that every year. We're all holding the older adult tech clinics. We're all doing the mammograms. I went to the Delacorte Theater groundbreaking. That's a really exciting thing in Central Park, because there'll be a new theater in a couple of years. I love going with Board 4 to give literature to the delivery people. I have to say they were really receptive, really
You just gotta
receptive.
talk to people.
Yeah,
It's really.
they were really receptive. French, Spanish, and English. It's a wonderful, you should get copies if you want of Board
think it's something
4's
like that.
material, you circulate it. We went with deliveristas plus members of the community board. And the reaction, they're so excited, delivery people, to have somebody say, we'll support you, but you gotta do X, Y, and Z. So anyway, it was really fabulous, excellent response. And then we are all working, Board 7, everybody on the on the cannabis issues. I'm not even gonna talk about them. I will say, Brandeis High School principal, one of them was in tears because the kids are all vaping in the classroom. And that created a 30-year exceptional principal to cry, literally on the phone with me. He's never had that. He's been 30 years a principal or in the Department of Education. He's never had that before. And that's because there is a friggin' cannabis store within 500 feet of Brandeis High School. No liquor store, restaurant, anything. We've been trying to get it closed. Everybody knows that. I've been out with the sheriff, been out with the DA, been out with everybody. We have 65 in our area, 65 illegal. So I'm just saying, I'm not gonna talk about it because it gets me too upset. I will say that a lot of high schools are smelling weed in the hallways because of these, in my opinion, because of these things. Anyway, we're all doing participatory budgeting. I want to say something special, and maybe this is happening elsewhere, but parent associations, particularly at one of our schools, PS 87, formed a 501c3. And they're working with the JCC, and they are literally in touch with every PTA, about, I don't know, 35 schools, maybe more, to anybody who has migrants. And they will literally say, what size shoes do you want? What kind of clothing do you need, et cetera. Every single.
And you shared that with us,
Yeah.
because we have a couple in our neighborhood.
Yeah, I mean, but they're like, these are type A parents, as you can imagine. And they are, I told the superintendent, just step aside, honey, you don't need to do anything. So they're doing
Give
that.
us
I will.
Their
Yeah.
contact info.
And,
Yeah.
and Gail, I'm sorry to tell you, but the vaping extends down to middle schools.
No, it does. I don't mean to say it's not just high school.
And
No,
it's
no,
happening in the parks at lunch.
Yeah, no,
Oh,
it's-
my God.
we're all, I get too upset. I will say also something else we're doing, when the speaker gave every elected official $100,000 to her credit, mostly to do cleanups, you know, to work with the Doe Fund or whatever. So I think Board 7 knows, but I put the money towards Amsterdam Houses / which is a nicer development, got in Riverside. And, you know, I was worried, is this gonna work? We're gonna knock on doors. I want young people to get jobs. I want this to be something that's a different kind of public safety, right? There's a notion with 100,000 for each council member was public safety. And it could be, you know, public safety meaning cleanliness, public safety meaning something else on the street. So anyway, I just met with them finally to say, okay, what happened? I have to say it was pretty darn good. They got something close to, I don't know, 70 people signed up for SYEP who never would have signed up. They have, I don't know, something close to 120 young people involved, either getting GED, going towards workforce, et cetera. So it's not, you know, this is hard work. Anybody who does it knows, but they hired 3 people and it's making some difference. I believe with NYCHA, to me, that is a place where we should be focusing. I keep telling the mayor, please focus on NYCHA, please focus on NYCHA. Because if you can turn around some of those families so they have more support, then we would have more issues, less issues in the city of New York. And I love NYCHA. I'm a big fan of the residents. Although when I go to visit Rikers, it's hysterical. Hi, Gail, hi, Gail, hi, Gail. Everybody knows me at Rikers. And I love that the folks who are walking around with us have no idea. So in terms of the issues of bills being passed, we're introducing a bill today that would say to the retailers who are selling the e-bikes and the scooters that they have to have a license. Now, if you have a license to operate, then maybe we can help get rid of the bikes that are illegal, you know, because the licensing, you aren't going to get your license to sell if you're selling illegal product. Now, that's not true of cannabis, that's another whole story, but that might help. Who knows? We're throwing like spaghetti at the wall to try to deal with these different issues. We're also voting on a bill today that would expand the documents that you can get in order to, that you need in order to get an ID card. In other words, more documents, hopefully more people can get the ID card. It's just a minor thing, but it helps with some of the migrants who can't get it because they don't have the right proof of identity. We passed a bill that said if you are an EMS worker and you want to be a firefighter, guess what? In 2020, the test was canceled. So 300 and maybe 400 people didn't take it because it was COVID, and they turned 29. And if you're 29 over at the fire department, you are no longer eligible. So this is a one-time exemption. You can be over 29, sign up for the test. And then if you pass, I think you can sign up till the end of November. And then if you pass, you can be a firefighter. So it's a big deal because the EMS folks are good firefighters because they obviously have the experience. We also have a lot of tree canopy bills trying to put trees more into the sustainability. I know Councilmember Bottcher is doing something similar. And then we also continue the worker consumer committee is going to talk also about retailers having battery safety guides. I don't know how helpful any of this is because it's still a big problem with the batteries. There was a fire yesterday, I think. No, it helped pretty constant. We are doing a lot of oversight hearings. That's my committee, oversight and investigations. We're doing one on again, we did one on the contracts. We're doing something similar on the 23rd of October. My favorite topic, and I think it might be yours, is mayor's management report. Nobody else loves it, but I think you might love it. So we're doing a hearing on that on the 26th of
That's your committee,
October.
right?
Yes, nobody else is interested in this topic. And also on November 1st, those two on delivering, and we'll, if you're interested, let us know if you want to testify or make sure we have something to suggest. There will all be, they're already posted up. And then we're doing one on the 20th of November on the issue of emergency planning, whether it's flooding or air quality. We've done one and we're doing another one. We have lots of events coming up. I think you all get our newsletter. You probably say it's too long, but it does have a lot of information. And thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Councilmember. Appreciate it.
Councilmember, if I could ask you a question.
Sure.
And we talked briefly on this, and we've just experienced just where we are in 96th and Park, which crosses over into CD8. There's been a lot of issues with the bikes and what we could do to protect our children and pedestrians. We've had, and I love if you please email your information over the Liveristas, but these are people on city bikes and others.
Oh yeah,
like,
they're just as bad,
Yeah.
worse, many times.
yeah,
worse.
so I was walking and I have a 10 and 6-year-old and literally someone flew right through the red light, almost hit both of my kids and then got up on the sidewalk on 96 on the south side. So what possible ways can we collaborate legislatively?
Well, we've been working with Board 7. We started a task force. I should mention that. It's so slow to have at least the people who hate each other in one room. So those are the people who love the bicycles, the people who hate the bicycles. The Department of Transportation, the mayor's office showed up to say what's some of this low hanging fruit. I think one of the low hanging fruit is to get off the goddamn sidewalks. This is my French. At least get off the sidewalks. We're also going to be dealing with what do you call cargo bikes, right? That's the next challenge. You're probably aware of that. The fact that Board 4 has the 2-way on 10th Avenue is making a positive difference. It's just, we're gonna have to, and I don't think the police officers are necessarily gonna do anything. I think we just have to keep working on the education. Maybe some of these illegal vehicles should not be on the street. I'm also pushing, of course, for licensing, but that's a state issue. We have a resolution. I didn't mention it because we can't do it. But we have a resolution to support Senator Hoylman's bill on licensing, not to say it's passed. The state has got a lot of bills floating around. I think that would help a lot. Insurance and licensing would help. The delivery folks really want to be part of the solution, right? And then, of course, you have the knuckleheads who aren't. They're just, going wild. And those gas mopeds are illegal. The issue is it's hard to get a battery charged. So they all go and buy these illegal gas mopeds. It's a mess.
It is.
And they're selling them everywhere. I mean, all you have to do is walk down the street and you'll
There's
see
two
it.
shops on 10th Avenue.
Yeah, you see them everywhere.
And are those same shops the same shops that are on the DOT map? For bicycle shops in Manhattan?
No, these are not bicycle shops. These are only selling mopeds.
Yeah, that's what I see.
Yeah, so again, just wanted to raise it.
No, I
It's a-
appreciate it.
it's a
It's-
significant safety concern because a 6-year-old may knocked over 25 miles per hour and hit their head.
No, I can't even go to the grocery
Yeah.
store without getting screamed at.
So I'm just gonna tell you, also be very
Thank
careful
you.
crossing out of this. building.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Jeffrey? That's what we're doing.
I would be remiss if I didn't state that in all our discussion about bicycles, it is so far on record the most deadly year for cyclists because of vehicular danger as well. So let's not forget the multi-ton steel cages that occupy the bulk of the space on our city streets and how dangerous those are as well. A couple of exciting things to report on. We've been working with the state on 2 RFPs for state sites in CB4. The former Women's Bayview Prison on West 20th Street and the West Side Highway. An RFP is out to convert this facility to provide 20 units of supportive housing with on-site wraparound services and also 15 units of transitional housing. While these numbers are paltry for what we need, this is a huge victory given the dire need, as many of you have mentioned before me this evening, to provide the most vulnerable New Yorkers with the type of care that they needed. This is a program that will be 100% funded by the state, really a first of its kind, coming out of money from DHCR, as well as the health department, to really make sure this is a facility that hopefully can also be replicated in other parts around the state, as this is the state program. So we are eager to see what those applications look like. Separate from that, another state site called Site K, which is across the street from the Javits Center. There was a previous RFP issued on this that Governor Hochul pulled. It is the site is zoned for 24 FAR commercial and originally 6 FAR residential. Thankfully, the governor pulled that and then recently reissued an RFP that allows for up to 12 FAR residential and the remaining to be commercial. So a huge win for the increase in housing in this area. This site has long been a part of our ask to. We much prefer to make 11th Avenue a more residential and not as commercial corridor. So the applications were due middle of September, so we're very eager to see what those look like. I have to say, like, the state did a really good job with this RFP. There were requirements for community facility, things that we've never really seen before. So I'm nervous to say it, but like it is seeming like a new day with ESD based on this Bayview RFP and the Site K stuff. So I know many of us have nightmare tales as it relates to city and state economic development organizations, but there's good stuff to be found in the work with them. We also are making a sort of another push for state-owned sites, other state-owned sites in CB4. There's 3 other sites in the district that we really consider to be low-hanging fruit as it relates to housing. 2 things on the migrant issue. The Port Authority let us know that there are still 40 buses arriving per week with folks being dropped at the curb coming from Texas. Texas OEM refuses to coordinate or even notify anybody in New York City, so we're still dealing with that. But on the education issue, because it was so successful what we did, another thing I would like to try to figure out is how there's a lot of information that migrants are receiving upon arrival in New York City. And I really would like one of them to be, don't spend thousands of dollars on a moped as your first investment in this town. It is illegal. And then because everybody gets mad when the mayor, the teams go out and they collect all the mopeds and destroy them because, we're taking these from people who spent their hard-earned money. Folks don't realize it's illegal. So if it's all about education, what are migrants receiving upon arrival and how can we be better about making sure they understand, might be tempted, but it's illegal and there's probably better ways to spend your very hard-earned money in a challenging time in this town. City of Yes, yes, there are a lot of, it's a big issue, but a concern for us is that DCP is stretched thin as it relates to being able to provide these briefings. And it's our understanding there is a citywide letter being circulated to request an additional 30 days for review to both provide the city planning staffing time, and then also just given the 18 topics that it will be taking up. And then finally, many of you have actually 2 quick more points. The Midtown South mixed use rezoning proposal, Ward 4 is advocating for an expansion of that scope. We want to actually pick up more geography to extend more of what's being proposed there for conversion of commercial to residential to further and more deeply incentivize that to happen and hopefully happen a bit more quickly.
What about my garment center?
Garment Center's on it, like that's, I mean, this doesn't eliminate that though, right? Like,
I'm just checking.
and as we know, Gail, the Garment Center jobs are not fashioned anymore, we know that.
No, we don't know that, you know that. It's ongoing.
There's many reports on that. But finally, a bit of good news. For a long time, you guys heard me also complain about Pier 94. But I'm happy to say the canvas is fresh and we're having a groundbreaking on construction next Tuesday. And that will officially start a 4-year clock, of which I think I'll keep a calendar on my wall, that they have to get that done. Otherwise, they are subject to significant fines if they don't finish that pier and all the work that comes with it. So we fought like hell, didn't get exactly what we wanted, but at least it's a project that's going to be moving forward with some good things in the end. So
Thank you, Jeffrey.
Sure.
Appreciate it. Pass it to CB5, Julie.
Sure. So we heard 2 cannabis licenses this month. We have a set of guidelines, so we've been rejecting all of them, except one of them this month did comply with all our requirements. So we did do a deny unless, but there were some folks that voted against it just because of the amount of supportive services and supportive housing in that area. People were very concerned. So there was a suggestion to revise our guidelines and maybe add another component to it. We had a lot of landmarks applications. We listened to 200 Park Avenue South,
Thank you, Kat.
modifications to existing storefront, 51 Madison at New York Life Building, there's installation of mechanical louvers. And then at the Metropolitan Museum of Art, modifications of screens in the Great Hall. And then lastly, we passed a resolution to support 3 public bathroom bills that was introduced this summer. 1076, which is to provide access to existing bathrooms in public facing municipal buildings. 1077, which is to provide capital funding for intro 2048. From last year where DOT and DPR proposing 1 bathroom for each zip code. That's 178 new bathrooms for our city. And then the last one is intro 1154, which is by Councilmember Nurse, which is to provide access to 3,000 additional bathrooms by 2035. This would be strategic planning for bathrooms so that they're actually situated and considered carefully for our neighborhoods, hopefully within our buildings and on our streets. We're very pro bathrooms. Thank you to some of the other CBs, CB1, CB4, CB6, and 7 who have supported as well. We sent a draft reso to encourage other community boards to help pass these intros before the end of the year. And for the city of Yes, we're also thinking about public bathrooms as a comment to the scoping documents.
Great. Thank you so
Would you
much.
mind circulating your criteria around cannabis? The more stuff we see from other boards, the better.
Yeah.
So that'd be great.
Task force.
Thank you.
Yeah, we have an application form, a questionnaire, and then we have a tip sheet, right, because we're following the SEO.
But anything like that, just it should be really useful.
And joins that request too.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
We're great. And I know Catherine had also mentioned sharing the talk as well, so.
Yeah.
It would include,
We've got
12,
a
yeah.
number of ones already going around, but the more the merrier.
Absolutely. I don't believe 6 is here with us, so I will pass it over to you, Beverly.
Cannabis, we have 21 applications in, we are hearing them next week at, our Business and Consumer Affairs Committee. They come in the door, we immediately turn around the form for a 30-day extension. It's just like, that's what you do. And we've gotten very confusing and continually evolving guidance from OCR. We did think for a moment there that we didn't have to hear to provisionals. We now think we do. I think out of the ones we have, maybe 2 to 3 actually have secured sites. I think what is happening is it's falling to our board to educate the applicants rather than OCR educating the applicants, which is hindsight forward in a way that, makes no sense. But we appreciated the Community Board 8 letter as something that we want to do the version of and will. Finding is extremely poorly rolled out. Even if we didn't like the rules, if they were clear rules, it would be a step forward. So we're struggling with that in a week. I'll know where we are, but we're having a whole series of pre-meetings on how to handle the ones that have come in. Since they're doing these rounds, and we think we've probably gotten most of round 1, this may be it until sometime in the new year. Because now they've extended the application deadlines as of a couple days ago. The ones that were for permanent due November 4th, they gave 2 more weeks due, and the ones that were due in December, they've given 2 more weeks due. So they're going to be busy processing up through January, the stuff that's coming in ready. So I think this is, you know, a wave that we have to work our way through, and then we maybe get a rest to be able to consider, you know, how we want to change our process going forward. You know, we've had a form go out to all of the applicants due back this week, and we'll wait and see what they've been able to tell us. But, you know, same thing you're all finding, multiple applications for the same address, except many with no address at all. Many with totally opaque information around who is the party involved in, it's a bit crazy. Plus, we have over 60 illegals that we've been pushing OCM about what action they can take on. And we've seen really no improvement. And as Councilmember Brewer stated, they don't seem to be able to close them. Once they take legal action against them, they're open 5 days later. So it's a mystery as to how to make all of this work. We have passed at committee a resolution in support of the redesign of the dinosaur playground in Riverside Park, which is a beautiful, beautiful facility, much loved, funded largely by Councilmember Brewer. And we'll vote on that in our November board. There were concerns that community didn't have time enough to look at the design. We are moving forward with it though because of Parks Department's timeline with LPC and PDC, and we wanted to be able to weigh in. But we've done everything we can to do outreach to the community, putting in our website, our newsletters and so on, so that there is more time for public comment. We're still struggling with hybrid meetings. I think the tech part is pretty much under control, but we're finding them much more complicated to run than either fully Zoomed or fully in person, because you just have too much else going on to try to marry those two modalities. We have recently developed a new system for voting, as kind of that will be asking our members to use their phones to register a vote for an item that will then flash up on the screen so people can see a running tally of what, and this will be piloting for the first time at our November full board. We did a dry run at our steering committee and folks were very positive. So I think just to get over this hurdle of the physical counting of hands and then the virtual counting of hands and then the adding together and the people who don't remember to take their hand down, you know, it's hopefully a way to shortcut all of that. And we're hopeful this will move our meetings forward in a more organized way. We're beginning work on congestion pricing and would like to be aware of what other districts in Manhattan are thinking about in terms of policies on this. We have a real divided set of opinions in our district about resident permits, so I'm not sure what we in fact are going to be doing around that. But the kind of physical issues related to things like the Macy Day Parade, we are happy to have the help of Councilmember Brewer in addressing those and recognizing them. We're very concerned about the asylum seekers students in our schools, both the impact on the school and frankly, the impact on the students from the recent announcement of the mayor for a 60-day window for relocating migrant families out of whatever shelter they've been placed in. That could be very devastating on both fronts. schools who've been gearing up to provide services for English as a second language and for the emotional needs of these kids. And then having the kids ripped out of the school, before the October 30th deadline of, counting, for budgets. We don't really know how that's playing out. We're trying to work closely with the school system to get a better read on that. But I think it could be a real problem. I don't know that the city hall has actually thought this through.
Don't forget to take a look at the after school partners
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah.
Because we've been hearing from the
Yeah.
after school partners.
Yeah.
They have to provide and they're not getting the additional funding.
Yeah, the city is discussing moving our offices after we just invested a ton in making them ready for hybrid meetings and putting in all the tech. And we're trying to figure out the best way to resist that effort. They seem to think that they don't want to deal with our landlord, but anyway. We've engaged with a large number of block associations in the district in an effort to document violations of the new sanitation rules with pictures, so that sanitation will have a visual and time-stamped record of places that are recidivists in terms of not implementing the new containerization rules for businesses. And we passed our top 3 priorities for the year, sort of the same as the year before: food insecurity, affordable housing, and educational quality, K-12. I guess that's it.
Thank you so much, Beverly. And I've been in contact with Max to see how we can be supportive with the space. So, thank you. Pass it over to Russell.
Once a year, we have our full board meeting on Roosevelt Island, so we did that last night, which is very nice. It was actually our smoothest hybrid meeting experience, which is sort of good and also bad because we do it once a year. But notwithstanding that, we did pass a resolution to do hybrid meetings permanently. We didn't do it temporarily to try to do that permanently going forward. That's a while, I guess it expires in June. We also passed a resolution to call for making our schools fully accessible. We had a meeting. There's a widespread problem with the lack of accessibility in public schools. So we're trying to address that in our district. In terms of cannabis, I think we haven't necessarily had the same kind of issues with the sort of substantive review of them. I mean, our approach is basically to handle it the same way that we handle our SLA applications, with the same concerns and the same stuff around that. I think procedurally, we also had a large number of applications, and as many as some of you, but we have 25. And I think, you guys saw it to the letter that we sent out to try and sort of address the procedural issues. Our understanding and certainly our position is that community boards don't need to review them until their applications for final licensure, meaning that you actually have control over, provisionally something like that, control over the site. And so that's the position we're taking. We don't want to spend time, hearing multiple applications for the same location. And we think that that's what the rules say, but we sent this letter to OCM to confirm that's what we'll be doing. We want them to, abide by that. And then separately, at this point, we don't know, frankly, how many of the applications we received actually qualify for that. But if it turns out that a large number of them actually do and are ready to be heard, it may just be that we don't have time to hear them all in one meeting. So we just ask them about the sort of over time kind of thing, just work with us so that, give us the time to actually look through it and hear them all. We'll get them our review as soon as we can. In terms of, we are also looking for staff. Our assistant district manager has left for a new opportunity. So we are looking for a new assistant district manager. So if anybody knows of anybody, let us know. And congestion pricing, just, similar to what Beverly said, I think we're interested to hear from other folks about kind of what they're doing on it, and just, you know, we've dealt with kind of discrete issues on it, but I mean, it's ultimately kind of a borough-wide issue, and so you know, as a borough board, I think a lot of coordinating, it's an area where we're able to folks have some of the same concerns, so we're sort of curious to know what you guys have done on it. I will say, just on the issue of residential parking permits, we considered that some time ago, and there was actually a council bill that I think Councilmember Powers had introduced on it. And our board, we actually ended up not taking action on it, and our board was very mixed on it, because as much as, you know, we like the idea of preserving our own streets and our own parking spaces for our own residents, there was a lot of concern about you know, people who have businesses in the district, and also doormen, a lot of doormen who drive into the districts and park cars, and we didn't want to make it difficult for them. So it was actually much more fraught than we initially thought, and ultimately we didn't move forward on it. So I don't know what the solution is, but that's another area where I think it actually is going to be kind of a borough-wide thing, because I think there may be complications if some areas are doing it or some areas are supporting it and other areas don't want it, and what have you. So it's a kind of on that. That's it.
Great, thank you, Russell. And I think back when we were in the council, Mark had the original bill on residential parking permits. So happy to have that conversation with you.
Okay.
Thank you. Victor, I'll pass it over to you.
Yes, good morning all. CB9 last month passed a resolution supporting intro 1099s, referring to Medicare for city employees, and the Medigap program. They're looking to switch all employees over to Aetna, which is a for-profit program, which we definitely disagree with. I was hoping that councilman was still here, because we're still pushing him to support it. Gail Brewer supported it early on, along with some other council members. So I'll be working on that meeting shortly. Residential parking permits have come up. We find in Upper Manhattan that we have a lot of people that come from Jersey, Connecticut, park in the area and take the trains down. And right now we have the new bins for the rack containerization program, which really has affected us. So most of them have been in favor of it. We try to consider other people that work in the area as well, but we don't think it's really fair to the residents there that people come and park, jump on the train and go downtown. So that will come up probably our next board meeting to try and pass that. Cannabis, it's been a mess. Thank you for the letter reading over last night. We will support that, send us a letter to the governor and OCM as well, asking for the very same things you mentioned. And hopefully we can put that along. We've only had a small number, maybe 15 or 20 applications coming so far, but they've been mixed. We've seen several applications for the same location as well. It seems to be just not running well. So taking a look at that, not to mention the illegal places we have that have been there for a year or more, and we haven't been able to do anything. Close them down and reopen, close them down and reopen again. So we've been pushing with the DA's office to try to move those along. Some of them are right near schools. And then we have just the guys on the corner selling with their whiteboards up, flavors of the month. Police drive right by them, and like I said, well, I see it, you don't see it. I get shrugged, so we're gonna keep working on that as well. Working very intently on budget and needs for the month to try to push that forward. There's a lot of need in the area. We have a lot of asylum seekers in the area as well. And the other thing we're looking at, I don't know if anybody here can, we're just trying to get a map of supportive housing and drug treatment facilities, because if they open new ones up, we like to say, well, there's another one right nearby. I don't know if that exists. I've asked people, no one's really come up with that yet. We have quite a few, and some of them are near daycare centers, near schools, and we think that could be a problem. I've worked at drug treatment centers right in my neighborhood, so I know they linger. Fortunately, at this point, we don't have the injection site places yet, but in my mind, if I'm someone selling illegal drugs, I'm gonna set up their injection sites.
Yeah.
You can go down the block, shoot up, get a shower, hang out, and then go away. we've been inundated for years with these sites. I just think they should be spread throughout the city and not concentrated in one area with supportive housing and drug treatment centers. Our rat containerization program is moving along. There's a lot of people in favor of it. It does look cleaner. There's others that have issues with it. I'm just asking for sanitation to be more transparent. They had originally said we'd be a real part of it, select sites, updates. That has not happened. They're supposed to come to our next board meeting to hear, back from residents. We've asked superintendents in the building and brownstone owners how they like it. And like I said, a lot do like it. Car owners not as in favor of it. Some of the seniors say there's a problem. The containers are about 3 to 4 feet high, so you have to lift it up. And some we see it just sitting in front of it. I can't lift it up, I'm gonna leave it in front. So they do have a new version they're coming out with. It was a little bit lower with a flap. We also have, of course, the people who look for bottles and cans go in. Some are very neat, tie it back up.
Right.
As I've seen with the bags, and others say, it's not my problem, they just keep moving. So it's a work in progress. We just want to partner with them so they can hear both sides of what's going on. Hopefully that'll work out well. I know many of you have nitrogen developments in your area. I have 3. One is under the RAD program starting now. So I'm just trying to get feedback from the residents and the tenant association, what their thoughts are. I'm a former NITRA employee, full disclosure. And I know the issues of budgeting and things that have happened. So I see some of the positive. A lot of people fear being switched over to Section 8, which they are in many cases, is an issue. I tried to give them the example of Chelsea Elliott, where they're going to build in a separate lot, move people over. I said, that's a win-win. Normally they move you away and tell you to come back, and it doesn't happen. So I'm just trying to, press that, but the repairs that are needed in many developments that are aging are just not sustainable by the city, state, and the feds are not giving any more money. So just trying to make them aware of those things. That's really about it for me this month.
Great.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
Regarding the treatment centers, we have a moratorium in place, and as many of you know, that almost 2 years ago, despite direct consultation with DOHMH and inquiry where we asked, are you planning on placing an OPC, citing it in our neighborhood? They said, no, not at this time. No, we're not. Then a subsequent call with DOHMH and our district manager, they again doubled down. And a few weeks later it opened. During that time, we investigated and we determined that everything that was built out in On Point was done. There were all 2s that were not filed. All the showers, everything that was done, the HVAC system that's used to pull out all the smoke, which is industrial strength that they use for kitchens to get the oil droplets out. That work was all done illegally. And we determined this because there were no filings in DOB. And even under the emergency order that de Blasio filed, you still have to file with DOB. That's required by law. And the EO would just expedite the processing of it. They have refused entry to the facilities for DOB inspectors. We've now 2 years in the process, finally got the data points. We're 2 weeks away from getting the actual zip codes to show where people are domiciled. But they withheld that information. Even CAU got involved, and they had it on their intake forms, but they weren't willing to give it over. We foiled with DOHMH. They claimed they didn't have a lot of the information that we requested. That turned out to be a lie on DOHMH's side, and we were able to prove that because we have the paper trail now. Regrettably, they've not been a good partner. We do want to help heal people. We do have a list of all of our facilities in our area, and I'm willing to work with you. We ultimately want to put people on a long-term track of recovery. We don't want to lose lives either, but in the same sense that Field of Dreams, build it and they will come. Many of the dealers in this neighborhood, except for one, are not from this neighborhood. Many of the arrest records show they're not from this neighborhood. Back to my earlier part of my report, the DA's office cannot get to these cases to prosecute. So therefore their plea downs decline to prosecute. And we're going to have that conversation and look at the metrics, what they are advocating for has been discovery reform, which is a state issue. They have 14 days to procure all the materials for the defense attorneys. They're focusing on violent crimes. That's all they have time to do. They do want to focus on it. However, their hands are tied, so they're trying to work out how they handle it. Those that are dealing with addiction, which is, I've seen it affect family members and friends. It's a real illness once it's physically possessed you. They want to find ways to get people into recovery, but that also requires funding from where? The state. And on a final note, and again, willing to partner as we have been doing, is the siting of it at the nexus point of where Second Avenue Subway will terminate, which started back when my dad was growing up. It has actually increased our overdoses in the area, not decreased. So this is something that we're dealing with. And when we talk about, and during my time living in London, I studied a lot of these subjects. They determined that when you concentrate anything, whether it's wealth, poverty, public housing, dad grew up in Millbrook, any of these aspects, it will become self-perpetuating. And it's just, that's more of a comment on us as a species and sociologically, and as we look at how we examine things. So I think when you talk about a diversification and spreading everything out, it becomes, as I alluded to them in our meetings, for those who are movie fans and the Harry Potter generation, if it's platform 9 3/4, people are going in and out, you will never know, you'll never see them. But when you concentrate like they've done in East Harlem, it becomes problematic. So we're trying, we just need good partners to work together. So that's my comment, and I'll give you my information.
Yeah, Tammy.
Yeah, sorry.
I want to introduce Zach, who's our new district manager, and I asked him to come up and say, look at the chairs this morning. It's not that I'm disappearing from trying to help Zach or pushing into the number too fast, but I wanted him to come up and meet everybody and say hello this morning. And if you know anybody looking for another district manager job, we have another board looking. Turns out it's a very popular career choice.
Thank you, Tammy. Zach Balmer. I actually originally started my work as a district or as a community board liaison for assembly member. So coming full circle here, spent some time in nonprofit and most recently for the city at SBS for intergovernmental affairs there. So happy to be part of the community, TB1, and the broader Manhattan Community Board. So thank you.
Welcome, and I know Tammy says she's not throwing you in the deep end yet, but I'll make sure you get the invite for next week's Borough Service Cabinet. So,
I'm gonna go with
okay, great. Just want to say thank you again all for being here. Sent me a message, said hello. She can't wait to see you all. She's at a professional development event in Senegal right now.
Yeah.
So she is enjoying much probably better weather than we are right now. But just wanted to share her hellos and thank you all for being here. I will take a motion to adjourn. Second. Thank you all again. Thank you all who attended virtually. Thank you to all our liaisons and Porfirio and Dawn for helping set this up. So to conclude, thank you, everyone.
Quick question, for those at the table.
okay.
Quick question.